At its core, programming is simply the manipulation of data. You write instructions telling a computer to organize and process data or information in order to achieve a desired outcome. These desired outcomes can be condensed into four major operations known as CRUD. CRUD is an acronym which stands for Create, Read, Update, and Delete. CRUD operations form the backbone of almost all software applications because they represent how we interact with data. Think about any social media website. What are the things you do? You can create and view your posts. You can view other people's posts. You can edit your own posts, fixing spelling errors or whatever change of information, and eventually delete it when you get cancelled, of course. You can create a comment, read comments by others, and so forth. Isn't this what all social media boils down to? Or perhaps it's a note taking application. You can create a notes, read your old notes, or delete those you deem irrelevant or outdated. We see these four operations across all types of applications. In fact, in web development, RESTful APIs are specifically designed around CRUD operations. RESTful API is an interface that two computer systems use to exchange information securely over the internet. In other words, that's how the internet actually works. Each CRUD action maps to an HTTP method: post for create, get for read, put/patch for update, and well, delete for delete. And we can demonstrate these operations right away. Let's build a very simple web application that stores a collection of people with the following properties: their first names, their last names, and age. Not date of birth, just a number. I don't want anything complex in this very simple demonstration. Like I said, a very simple app. We will be working with the .NET framework and the C Sharp language by Microsoft. Now, it's a free and open source framework that can help you build any web application. We'll start with the command line interface. Okay, so let's start this. And if you download the, I'm not gonna go into it because again, there's a different that's a video for a different time. But if you download your .NET and install it properly, you just click .NET dash dash version, and we can see straight away right here 8.0.0.403. That's the version, and this is the latest version. .9 is gonna be out later, I think this November. But for now, this is the latest, most unstable version of the .NET framework. So this is a way to find out, to make sure that you have it downloaded properly. And now we're going to create a web API. We say .NET. Don't worry. Use controllers dash O for the output, and we're gonna call it person app. Don't worry if you don't understand all this. Okay, it's just the .NET CLI, and I will make videos, of course, touching on the .NET framework, including this CLI. And now that we clicked on this, we can see this person app right here. We see a folder here containing a web API application, and we can see the files created for this app. We have the controllers, properties, app settings, and all kinds of stuff. And the default is, of course, a weather forecast application, just a template to show you how it works. So we are going to point into this right now. CD, which means change directory, person app. Again, if you don't understand all this, don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself. You can Google it. There's YouTube videos, and of course, I will make future videos on the .NET framework and the ins and outs of it. And CD, which means change directory, into person app. So we've gone into this now, and then we say code space dots. So we want to open this in our Visual Studio Code, and all that, those files we can see here. Like I said, the template is a weather application. It's not a real weather app. It's not hooked to the internet or anything. It's just, if we go to the controller here, we can see it's randomized. Again, don't worry about this. Anyways, let's go ahead and create, let's not lose sight of what we're doing here. So let's move at speed and create a folder called models. And in that folder, we will create a file called a person.cs. We want to model a person. It's a CS application. So we go namespace, which is person app dot models. Okay, the namespace is just a way to organize our code. Public class person. No, I said person. And now public ints for the ID, gets, sets. This is more of a C# thing, in case you're wondering. And now the properties. Remember the properties that I said? Let's use a prop string. Remember those? First name, last name, and age. And this is going to be our person. The ID is, of course, a unique identifier. First name, last name, and the age. Okay. Now we want to go ahead and configure our database, because remember, like I said, we want to manipulate data. Where are you going to save the data? Well, to a database. So we're going to do a .NET add package Microsoft entity framework core, and we can see a bunch of stuff is being downloaded to help us configure our database. Okay, an entity framework core is the way to do it in a .NET application. We're downloading from something called NuGet, and again, we will talk about all of that. So let's go ahead and create a folder called data. Okay, and in the data, we're going to configure our person context.cs. Okay, this is how we will configure our database using Microsoft entity framework. Remember what we just downloaded? We're going to create a class called person context, and is going to inherit from the DB context, which comes from entity framework. If we hadn't downloaded entity framework here, remember when we did this? This would be reading severe error. It wouldn't understand what's going on. All right. So we want to go ahead and create a constructor. DB context options person context, and we say we will not be doing anything with this, and we will go here and we say it's a base constructor options. Sorry, forgot to put in this. Anyway, so this is what a base constructor is. And we say, okay, so it's time to set our database. DB sets person, people, gets sets. And that's it. So this is how you, if we had this entity here, person is here. If we had other things like home insurance or other things that we needed to also add, we will add them. DB whatever, DB home, DB car, whatever. Let's say for an insurance company. So let's move at speed. We go to the program.cs to register our application, and we have register our database. We say the builder.services.add db context person context options options dot use SQLite. We're going to be using SQLite on our data source. We're going to make it person data.db. That's what we're going to name our database. Let's save this, and we can see here that there's an error here because we haven't installed anything to, we haven't told the computer, we haven't installed SQLite on this application. So let's go ahead and do that straight away, and we see here add package right here, add package Microsoft dot entity framework core dot SQLite. We're downloading the package to accept SQLite. And so now if we do control period, you see we also have SQLite. It also recognizes that we're using SQLite. And we still need to download something else. Let's go ahead and clear this screen a little. And .NET add package Microsoft dot entity framework core dot tools, so we can do migrations and configure the database properly. And we download that as well. All right. Now we say .NET EF migrations add initial. We can call it whatever we want, but this is our initial migration. And when we click enter, we see it starts to build, starts to configure automatically. You see, and right here we see migrations. Let's click on that. You see, it just created a migration. We called it initial. If we had called it something else, it would read here. And we see the name is people, and the column, the ID, the first name, the last name, and the age. And that's all it is. Now, this is only going to work if you have the .NET EF tool installed. So if it doesn't work for you, if this command does not work for you, do .NET. You can check it out and say .NET EF, and if you see that Entity Framework Core command line tool, and if you don't have it installed, just say .NET tool install dash dash global, not global, global .NET EF, and then you can install that. I'm not going to do that because I already have it, obviously. And yeah, it's time to create our controller so that we can now configure the person. You see, we have a weather controller here. So it's time for us to configure a person controller. Say person controller.cs. So we want to say namespace, of course, person app dot controllers. All right. Um, we say public class person controller, which inherits from the controller base. Now we want to inject read only. We want to inject our person context. We're going to inject it into a constructor. Person context. All right. And now we can say context equals context. All right. So we've brought in from from our database, this context over here, so that we can then manipulate it using the controller. Okay. Sorry about that. We're going to be using, since this is going to be an HTTP, we're going to use a lot of HTTP requests over here. Let's go ahead and configure the routes. So we say routes controller, and that's it. And we also say we need to specify that this is actually an API controller, and that's it. So now we can begin creating what we need to be able to execute the CRUD commands. So let's first concentrate on creating a person, which is of course a post. So we say HTTP post, and we say we create public asynchronous, okay, task iaction result called create, how you will create a person. And so we need to bind this. What are the properties we want? Well, we want to bind the first name, the last name. I don't know why I did that. It should be. and finally the age of the person. And this is going to be, we're creating a person object. So now we have the now that we've done that, we're getting an error because we don't have a return type, and we need a return type. So we say context dot people dot add. Again, remember, person. And then we need to save this person that we've created. Oh, and then we return an OK. Then we can close out the function. So this is our create method. We want to be able to bind the first name, the user's first name, the last name, and the age. And that's all there is to it. Okay, so this is how we create a person. Okay, so no, that's how do we read a person? First of all, we're going to do two types of read. We can read a single person, HTTP gets, or we can read everyone. You know, you want to read a list of people. So let's go ahead and do the list of people. Async task action results. Well, I enumerable of people. And let's call this method read everyone. You can call it whatever you want, of course. And so we just want to bring back a list of people in the database. Okay. And we say, how do we do it? Okay, we say variable people. Sorry, I switched off there for a second. And we just want to bring back a list of people to list async. That's it. And then we then return OK people to the user. And now we've configured our first read. So we have a create and read everyone, but you know, we're creating two types of reads, remember. So now we want to read a single person, which is HTTP get, and we want to be able to read ID. Read them by their ID, which is their unique identifier. Because remember, two people can have the same name. What separates them is their unique identifier. So we say read, and we want to pass in the ID. And we say variable person. We say await context dot people dot find async, passing in the person's ID. And then we say we can then return this person. And that's it. And just like that, we've already, I think we're almost like halfway there or something. I don't think we've configured a database yet. We finished configuring our database, but we'll get to that. And then we get the HTTP puts. Okay, this is to be able to edit a single person in the list. So we say public async task I action results updates. Well, what do? Well, we pass in that person's unique ID as well. You need to know who you're trying to edit. And you say, well, first of all, you pass the ID and then you pass the person edits person object. We call it edit person. So we say for variable of person, we want to we want to bring we want to first identify who we were trying to edit. Okay, we want to make sure we're editing the person, and if person is null, the person doesn't exist in the database, return not found. This is what we call, which you will be familiar with. Not found is a 404 error. So we want to say the person's first name will be equal to the edited first name. Edit person's first name. Person's last name will be equal to edit person last name, and person age equals edit person dot age. Now we can update context dot updates the person and save a new person object as an edited one. So context dot save changes async, and then we return an OK. That's all we need to do. We don't need to return the object. Just make sure we've edited it properly. Okay, and so we've done create. Just to make sure that you're following, we've done the create, we've done the read everyone, and we've done the read one person, we've done edit a person, and it's time for delete a person. HTTP delete. Once again, we need to make sure that we're deleting that we can identify the record by unique identity, the person you're trying to delete. And so we say I action results, and we call it, well, delete. It's that simple. Int ID. Now remember, the reason why we're using an integer is because the IDs are integer is because we did save it as ID. If we change this to string or GUID, or like a UUID, it's called GUID in .NET, then those will all be those will not be ints. I just did it this way to make it as simple as possible for everyone to easily follow what's going on here. And so you say await underscore context dot people. Again, you want to find the person you're trying to delete. Find async. We pass in the ID. And once again, if the person is null, or you can say equal null. But don't do that. If you want to do this, then do it everywhere. But since I'm using is null, you want to be consistent. That's something you need to learn in programming. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but you know, consistency is key and very important. And so you say if you're gonna do equal or is, then stick to something. Remove person. If we can identify the number, then we can remove the person. Then we can save context dot save changes async, and then we return OK. And that's it. That's it. We've done everything that we. And so we have our create right here. We have our read. We have two types of read. We can read the list of everyone in our database. We can update or we can delete. So let's go ahead and save that and go back to our command prompts. I don't think we finished configuring our database. Anyways, we did what did we do? Okay, we did the initial migration. So let's go ahead and ef update database .NET ef database updates to make sure that everything works to actually enforce the database that we created. And we see that. See? It created it. Here, take a quick look. It says, I'm not going to go through all this, but it created a table with a primary key. And here, create table of people. And in it, integer. And we see the first name is text, last name is text, and age is an integer, which is, whole number. And over here, we can see this right here, person data.db. And if we click on that, we can see the int, the first name, the last name, and the age. So, fingers crossed, and let's make sure everything works as planned. So let's go ahead and make. Let's make a folder called requests. And in there, we're gonna create a bunch of REST clients. So let's create one for create.http, and this is how we're going to create our person. Let's copy the what do you call it? The host, the local host. Let's find out what it is. Okay, here we have it here. Let's go ahead and just copy that and plant it in our request right here. That's our local host. All right, let's go ahead and post, because create is post. Remember? So we just say person app host / person. Wow. And so we're gonna do a content type is going to be, why is it saying content type? Okay, application, no, not that. JSON. This Microsoft autocomplete thing is really angering me. Some of you would know. And so here we go. We say first name. Let's call him David. Last name. Let's call him Phillips. And age. No, not user agent. Age. Let's call it. Let's say he's 19, 19 years old. All right, let's go ahead and just copy this because we would like to make a lot of people just to demonstrate this application. So first name rather than David, of course, we want to create many people. We want to say Frank, and last name Darren, and he's going to be 35 years old. I'll probably just fast forward through this part. All right, the next guy is going to be, let's call him Jack Jacobson. Jack Jacobs. And there we go. So we're done with our create object. All right, so let's go ahead and fire up the server. Again, fingers crossed. And we say clear screen and we say .NET build. Let's just make sure everything is building properly. Okay, build successful. So let's say .NET run. Let's make sure it's running. Okay, it is running. All right, let's say send post, send request. I don't understand. Oh God, there's too many. All right, sorry about that. I didn't realize there were loads of too many brackets. It's only supposed to be two. All right, let's give this another go. And we say send request. And we see 200 OK. Let's do the second one. We see 200 OK. We do the third one. We see 200 OK. Let's do the fourth one. We see 200 OK. And the fifth one, we see 200 OK. This is magical. Let's go ahead and check this out. Let's go back to the database and we can see David Phillips, 19 years old, Frank Darren, 35 years old, Jack Jacobs, 49, Archer Mitchell, 32, and Declan Sanders, 25. And so we can see that we have successfully created several people by using the controller and this create method. We bind the first name, the last name, and the age. We send it to the database, and then we save it to the database, and that's is what we have been able to do. Let's go ahead and create a read. Okay, read.http REST clients. So let's go ahead and do this. And we say we put the remember a read is gets. Okay, read is gets person hosts. Ah, now I understand. You're not gonna get me twice. What? Accept. Application or get JSON. So we need to separate it. This is something that I will. And this one just gets, because we're just asking, we're not giving it any ID, just person, which is the controller here, person, it ignores that controller. We're just asking for everything, so it's going to give us everything. Now let's go ahead and do this. But this time, we're going to get the person with the ID of 1. We're going to get the person with the ID of 2. We're going to get the person with the ID of 3. We're going to get the person with the ID of 4. We're going to get the person, you get the idea, and finally the 5th one, which of course these numbers here match the requirements here, which is when we input the ID, we should be able to find the person in the database. And so let's go ahead and check it. Fingers crossed that everything is working great. Oh, our server is still going. Let's go ahead and rebuild it. Let's go ahead and run it now. And it is running. And let's send requests, get. And we can see it gets us everyone. David Phillips with the ID, first name, last name, age. Frank Darren, everyone. The first, remember, the first one is just get everyone, which matches this controller. No, don't bother. I'll bring it back up. But it matches the controller. Just get everyone. Okay, so let's get just the guy with the ID of 1. You see this 1 here? Let's try that. And we see that. Let's get the guy with the ID of 2. And we see that. 3, 4, 5. And it works perfectly, flawlessly. And so, which is, of course, our database. We'll just go ahead and close that up. So, let us go ahead and create an update file, HTTP file, updates.http. What is our, let's copy our address again, our localhost address. Now, update is, of course, put, or we can use patch as well. So you just say person address slash person slash 1. Okay, so if we want to edit the guy with the name, the first guy whose name is David Phillips, you see, we're going to edit that in real time. And we're going to say content type is still, application.json. We give this space. So we want to be able to change his name, first name, to Nathan Drake. And his age to, let's see, 32. Let's change this guy, the next guy, to or not Rex. And he's going to be 400 years old or something like that. What's going on here? Oh, for a second there, I forgot how to type. Anyways, you get you get the idea. So let's go ahead and save all this, and let's run. Let's cancel this, and let's go ahead and rebuild everything, and .NET run. So remember the guy with the ID of 1. Let's go ahead and look at him again. And we can see ID of 1 is David Phillips, age 19. Let's see if we can change that. And he says, okay. So let's go ahead and look at it again. And it says Nathan Drake, 32. Let's do the second one, Ordnot Rex, 400. It says, okay. Let's look at that. I don't understand why that didn't work. Or not Rex, 400. Okay, so it did work. Maybe it just didn't update visually. And so we've done updates. And then finally, let's do uh, a delete.http. What's our host again? And finally, our delete. So remember, our method is called delete. You know what? Let's try this. Oh, okay. It works. We didn't need to artificially put. That's why it kept messing up the first time. Application to JSON, and that's it. Let's see if we can delete the first record, the second record, the third record, the fourth record, so that we only have one person left in the entire database, a database of 5. Let's see if we can just make it just one. And we see now, we see, okay, no, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. We save it. Let's go ahead and kill the server. .NET build should work. Okay, .NET run. So let's go ahead and see if we can delete this person. And it says okay. So let's delete the second person, the third person, and the fourth person. It told me okay for all of them. So let's go ahead and see if we can read everyone and see if it did in fact delete everyone except the last one. And we see only number 5. When we say get the entire record, we have only number 5. That's the only person left, Declan Sanders. And in fact, if we look at the database here, we see only one person left, ID 5, the one we didn't delete, Declan Sanders. We were able to get this up and running quite well, maybe not as fast as possible, but this is a tutorial on how the CRUD applications generally work. Now, obviously, bigger applications require more complex things to happen, but from a high point of view, an overview, this is how all your applications work. From your social media to your to-do applications to your scheduler, which is of course a to-do application, things that you want to do, to your alarm applications on your phones, to your note-taking app, as I previously talked about, to your messaging app, your Facebook Messenger, your WhatsApp. You send message to people, they read it, they send one back. You can delete messages, you can delete followers, things like that. So I hope you liked this video. I quite enjoyed making it, and if you could hit me with a like and subscribe, like the video, subscribe, and maybe give me ideas on what you want to see next. Okay, if you want to see me make a specific topic. Otherwise, stand by for my next video. Hey, to be fair, in fairness to me, I did wait to the end to ask you to like and subscribe and comment. So that gets me some points, doesn't it? Anyways, thanks. And I'm happy to do this. I quite enjoy this, actually. Thank you.